everyone, welcome to part 6 of the Highlands Wrap Dress Sewalong. Today, we'll finish up our dresses by sewing the sleeves or the armscye facings, depending on which view you're sewing. Let's dive in. Okay, let's start with the sleeves. We'll need to sew 2 lines of basting stitches so that we can easily ease the sleeves into the armscye. With long thread tails and the longest stitch length possible, start sewing your basting stitches at the front notches. Sew the first basting stitch with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and the second basting stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And sew until you reach the back notches, leaving long thread tails when you're done. And repeat this for the opposite sleeve. Press the hem of the sleeve towards the wrong side by 1/4 inch and then fold it up again and press by 1 1/2 inch. Unfold the hem you just pressed and align the side seams of the sleeve right sides together and sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Finish this seam as desired and press it towards the back of the sleeve. Repress the hem into the sleeve. And now we're ready to pin the sleeve into the armscye. With right sides together, match the front, center, and back notches of the sleeve with the notches on the armscye. Pull the bobbin threads of the basting stitches as needed to gently ease the curve of the sleeve into the armhole, making sure there aren't any large puckers or folds of fabric. And pin around the armhole really well. Sew the sleeve into the armhole with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Remove the basting stitches and finish the seam as desired. Repeat these steps for the opposite sleeve and press these seams towards the bodices. To finish the sleeves, we just need to sew the hem down. Sew the hem to the sleeve with a 1 3/8 inch seam allowance. I do this from the wrong side of the sleeve to ensure I'm catching the hem with the stitch. Okay, and the final process I will show will be sewing the armscye, also known as the armhole, facings. This method is identical to sewing the facings around the neckline. First, align the front and back facing right sides together and sew the short ends with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Press those seams open. Then, sew around the outside edge of the facing with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. This will be our guide for pressing. Press the outside edge of the facing towards the wrong side on the stitch line. Align the facings with the armhole with right sides together, matching notches. I pin at the underarm seam, at the shoulder seam, and at the front and back notches first, and then I place pins in between those points. Sew the facing to the armhole with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. and clip into the seam allowance just up to the stitch line around the entire circumference of the armhole. Now, just like on the neckline facings, we'll understitch the seam allowance to the facing. And then we'll press the facing towards the wrong side of the dress and stitch around the armhole with a 1 3/8 inch seam allowance. And now just repeat those steps for the opposite facing. That's it. You have finished your Highlands wrap dress. Give it a try on and we would love to see how it looks. On Instagram, you can tag us at allieolson.patterns and use hashtag Highlands Wrap Dress. Nice work.